Hey guys, what's up? It's JMT and welcome back to another Survive the Night video. In this video, we're going to be doing a gear tier list. A lot of people were questioning how come I didn't put all the gear in when I did the merch, gear, and perk tier list. And to be frank with you guys, I think I explained it in the other video, but if I even combined the merch gear with the normal gear, a lot of merch gear would be ranking higher than the normal gear because, of course, they got their specific perks and stuff like that, which makes it more of a unique item. So that's why I went ahead and made these split videos. So you guys know how this works with the tier list videos that we're doing, but if you guys are new to this, welcome to my tier list videos. So we're going to be ranking all of the gear in Survive the Night from worst to best, and in those specific categories from worst to best, we're going to be ranking them as the F, B, A, and S. F, of course, being the worst tier, and S being the best tier. The gear that I would go ahead and recommend that you guys use and survive the night. And let's go ahead and kick off this video because we got a lot of gear to go through. We have 13 individual gear in Survive the Night so far, so let's rank them in the tier list. Starting off in the F tier, guys, we're going to be putting the tracker into the game. This is the gear that you get when you first join Survive the Night. So let's go ahead and talk about why the tracker is in the F tier, okay? Well, let's just get it right off the bat. I don't know why it's called tracker when it could be called trash bag. Okay, this thing is insanely annoying when people are just following you around in the game that are new. This thing is not only just a bad gear to have, but it's insanely loud. Now, of course, when you are playing as a slasher, you don't have that auditory sense of the tracker unless you get into like a very close range of the survivor, and that range of course isn't actually that close. It could be a little far away, but this is why it's just bad. And of course the tracker is going to be self-explanatory here. It helps you track where the slasher is, but it doesn't actually tell you where he is. It just beeps if he's even in the radius of you, so therefore you still have no idea where the actual slasher is. It'd be better just to go ahead and actually use your senses of playing the game and having experience with it to tell where the slasher is than to have this thing beeping every second telling you, hey, I think the slasher's near. That's pretty much like me playing the game and telling you guys, okay, there's going to be a slasher on this map, good luck. Moving on to the F category, we have the compass. Now, of course, I'm going to be ranking these in, you know, your benefit to survival here, okay? And the compass is just no. Even the merch's compass is a no. I put that in the F tier in the merch gear plus perk tier list video. A lot of people are going to be like, well, of course I'm not going to use the compass to help me survive, but if I want to find relics to do daily challenges and stuff like that, I would throw in the compass. Even that, dude, if I'm trying to find relics or if I'm trying to get points, I still wouldn't use the compass. Do you know how often I just stumble upon relics? Or do you know how often I can find relics on my own without using a compass? It's just a gear that I wouldn't suggest using. You could use a gear that would help you survive more to find relics than having the compass point you out to relics, okay? And it doesn't even point it out unless you're in a close proximity. All you have to do is check rooms, and if you play the game long enough, you have an understanding and experience of where relic locations actually are. You could be using a gear that could help you get away from the slasher and stuff like that, which would give you more time to go ahead and find relics than having to just rely on the compass to go ahead and point relics out for you. So this is why I'm putting the compass in the F tier. Next in the F tier, we have the CCTV. I don't see people just use this gear, unless it's the merch's version, because that is actually very fun to use. But the normal CCTV, I've never seen anyone actually use this thing, and I don't know if anyone knows when to use this thing. So the CCTV, you place it on the wall, and if you enter into your little ability with the gear, you can go ahead and see that location to where you place the CCTV on. Why is this helpful? The only thing I think the CCTV would be helpful for is if you place it on a wall and go hide on like another side of the wall just to see if the slasher's actually coming. But by that time, you can already hear him coming. So I don't know if the CCTV is actually helpful at all to help you recon the locations, and I don't think you need to recon the locations too much if you can just use other gear to help you rotate with the slasher. So that's why I'm putting the CCTV into the F tier. And the final item that we have inside of the F tier is the night vision. The merch's night vision. Oh boy. Yeah, I know I'm comparing a lot of these gear to the merch's items, but guys, the night vision in this game is actually, it's not that bad, but again, it's supposed to be one of those recon items that I just don't think you need to have. Of course, if you want to go ahead and use it on like the farm map or something like that, that would help you see better or whatever. You guys can actually see the slasher's red glow from from a very far distance away. The night vision does help you see around everything, okay? It does clear up everything in general. I think everything has a green tint for every night vision reskin. But the night vision also defeats the purpose of seeing that red glow from the slasher. So once your night vision is on, if you're trying to look for the slasher, you gotta actually look for a moving object. You can't look for that red glow anymore and that dark mist of the fog there. So that's why I'm throwing the night vision inside of the F tier. So those are the 4 items in the F tier. We're going to go ahead and move on to the B tier now. And starting off in the B tier, we have the motion sensor. This thing is a little helpful, okay? This is a gear that I wouldn't put into the F tier, but of course it's on the edge. It's on the brick of it because it's not a gear that I would still use, but I've seen some people use it. And they use it normally to help out other people as well. I don't think motion sensors are just for yourself. Of course, they're going to be insanely loud if you trigger the thing. It's going to be helpful for everyone and letting everyone know where the slasher is, especially if you're on the guest house map. It's really hard to tell where the slasher is if you don't have an understanding about where he is and which floor he's on. There's 3 separate floors in that guest house game, and if you're even above one floor that the slasher's on, it's still going to make the noise that he's like right on top of you. So having that motion sensor to actually trigger and help other people to know where that slasher is could be helpful in the rotation and trying to stay away from the slasher. So this is why we're putting the motion sensor inside of the B tier. And next in the B tier we have the master key. The update that just came out with this thing is actually pretty good, okay? The door can be open and you can go ahead and still use this ability. Before you had to go ahead and actually shut the door and then take some time to stand there and wait for the door to be able to open it again for you to actually use your ability, and then that would lock the door. But now with this update, with all the keys in fact, you can go ahead and have an open door, run through it with the loop, and then you can use the ability. It instantly slams the door and shuts it. It locks it. So therefore the slasher can't get through it unless he wants to sit there and wait for a long time to open the door. I think it'd be faster to go ahead and just knock off the door than to sit there the entire time to try to open a locked door. The master key, yes, helpful. Used by quite a bit of people, and some people actually like to use this gear the most. But in my general opinion, the master key is not one that I would use over other gear. Now, just because I am ranking this in the B tier as well doesn't mean it's the worst item. And of course, this is all opinion based. But if I'm playing against a lady slasher or even an alien slasher and I use the master key wrong, that door is either coming off or I'm going to lock myself in a room with that slasher going ahead and rotating with his own ability. It does happen with a lot of slashers, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people, accidentally locking the wrong door and then locking themselves in the room or shutting out their only other way of escape. I've seen it happen on campsite quite a bit, locking the front door and the slasher comes in from the other door, so therefore you got to go ahead and probably go upstairs to try to loop around and get back downstairs to get outside the door that the slasher came in. It does happen, which is why I'm throwing this master key into the B tier. Next in the B tier, this might be a surprise to some people, okay? But we have the scrap shield. Guys, the scrap shield is a decent item, but here's the thing. Every time I've been using shields and stuff like that, it's very rare that I actually get out of the fight, okay? Yeah, it may stagger the slasher, but it doesn't give me that long of a time to go ahead and actually get out of his range of vision, unless I'm rotating around a specific area. The slasher is still just going to come after you, especially when that shield goes down once. He's just going to get out of that state and continue chasing you. The scrap shield actually doesn't help too much. I'd rank the master key over the scrap shield actually. It's a nice gear to use, and the merch's version of it is pretty cool as well, which you can actually go ahead and get away if you use the merch's version, I'd say. But the normal scrap shield, the slasher is more than likely going to go ahead and still get you, even though that he triggered your scrap shield. So that's why I'm throwing it inside of the B tier. And those are the 3 gear for the B tier. We're going to be moving on into the A category. Starting off in the A tier, we have the camera. This is the gear that I think is used the most in Survive the Night. People really like to use these stun gears, okay? The camera reskins and stuff like that. The shotgun, for example. Why did I put it in the A tier if, of course, I am ranking it by what people use as well and how good they use it? If everyone uses it, why isn't it an S tier item? Well, let me tell you. If you're going against a good slasher who has headphones on with surround sound and stuff like that, which is most of the population that plays Survive the Night, if you use the camera on the slasher, you get him into that blind state. If he has surround sound, he's still going to be able to hear your breathing. I do it all the time. If someone ever stuns me and Survive the Night, I can still hear where they are, and I'm going to follow them because it doesn't actually stagger me. I can continue to move to that survivor's location, even though I'm in a blind state. And once I get out of that blind state, 80% of the time, I am still on tail with that survivor. So it doesn't help him all the time. The camera is a good gear to use, and I've seen it used very well, which is why it's in the A tier, okay? And a lot of people use it. Now, if you do use it and shut doors and stuff like that, or if you use it to go ahead and stall time for someone to build a barricade, stuff like then that's when it actually, would be helpful. And it is helpful if you're playing solo as well, getting into certain locations or rotating around a certain area. If you want to go ahead and blind the slasher, let them know that you're not actually heading to a specific spot, or if you need to get out of like a dangerous area. That is why I'd throw the camera into the A tier, and it's going to be on the bottom of the A tier as well, because it is a gear that could go up and down from the B to the A. I think the master key in the future might actually go ahead and be thrown up. Next in the A tier, we have the bear trap. Just like the camera, but the roles are reversed. It doesn't blind them, but it staggers them, and I think the bear trap is better than the camera. Now, of course, the slasher is still going to be able to see you once this bear trap gets triggered if he is chasing you, and he will go ahead and catch up to you again. But if you place these in precise locations where you're going to be rotating in the future to get away from the slasher when he does chase you in the future, people do that really well. People use this bear trap to plan out their survival. Use it as a backup plan if they're getting out of a certain area and it's a tight little hallway, or even on the caving system inside of Revenant. People really like to use this bear trap because it does slow the slasher down, and you can get far enough away where to the point where they do lose their auditory hearing. They can't hear your breathing anymore, and then they go ahead and actually stop tracking you, which is why I'm putting the bear trap inside of this A tier. Next in the A tier, we have the audio player. Now, the only reason I'm putting this into the A tier, like normally I would be putting this into the B or the F tier because I would never use the audio player. But in the tournament that I just hosted for Survive the Night, the first round, it was insane with the audio player usage. The amount of people that I saw use this thing and get away with it, like tricking the slasher, was incredible. People who use the audio player that are super experienced are insanely good at the game. Place it in certain locations, even place it in open lockers and then shutting it to actually make it look like a survivor is there if the detection rate is not quite there for the slasher, so they're going to have to go ahead and check the locker for someone. But the audio player was used so well in dragging the slasher into locations where no one's actually there and giving the survivor a chance to go ahead and create another rotating system. It just messes up the plan for the slasher quite a bit. I myself am going to have to learn how to use this thing, but if you do master the audio player, I think it's going to be a good item that we're going to go ahead and throw at the top of this A tier. Moving on into the S tier. These are the last 3 gear in the game that I think are very helpful in Survive the Night, and they're gear that I use quite a bit. Starting off, we have the hammer. Building barricades. This can be super annoying. We saw this happen in Survive the Night tournament a lot, okay? A lot of slashers didn't go ahead and actually get a placement point because barricades were being built, slowing them down and stuff like that. Hammer spammers, of course, has been decreased. You can't go ahead and have other people build on people's barricades now, but it's still an issue where you gotta take them down once you see them, okay? If you're not playing the lady slasher and you do see a barricade, I would just go ahead and take it down right then and there. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem in the future for survivors rotating back to that area if you didn't take it down. I do know a lot of people who only hit it twice and then run away to go try to get the survivor, and if they do catch up to them and the survivor tries rotating back to the area thinking that the barricade is still a 3-hit, slasher just runs right into it and therefore surprises the survivor and ends up getting the kill most of the time. This thing can just be a problem if you don't go ahead and take out the source right away, which is why we're throwing the hammer into the S tier. Next in the S tier, we have the flare. This thing was the bear trap and the camera combined. It blinded and it stunned, but it doesn't do that anymore. Unfortunately, the flare just stuns now. It does a little bit of both. It makes you slower and it blinds you, and both as a longer duration. And the flare does refill pretty fast, which is also why I'm putting it above the camera and the bear trap gear. So the flare, once placed, and can be placed in any location, of course. There's no certain distance away where this gear would actually work as well, like the camera sometimes. Whilst being chased by the slasher and you place this gear on the ground, that certain location is going to be a stun area now. The slasher could walk through it and get in that little blind state and a little slow state, and you could get your escape. But if you end up rotating back to that location with the flare on the ground, it's still going to be an effect for the slasher. He's still going to be a little bit blind and a little bit slowed with this flare gear, which makes it better than the bear trap and the camera in my opinion. You don't have to be a certain distance to go ahead and have the camera work, and it doesn't have just one use. It could be used more than one time with the duration of the flare. The flare is pretty good for getting out of those risky escapes, I think. A lot of people who do use it though think that you just gotta place it when the slasher's right next to you, which therefore as a result the slasher ends up getting a hit off of the survivor. But you can go ahead and actually place this wherever, and the slasher doesn't have to walk right over it either to be put into effect. The slasher could be near the thing and it would still stun and slow him. Great tool to use, and it's mobile as well. It does its radius in a certain area, which is why I'm going to be throwing this flare into the S tier. The final item in the S tier, guys, is the GHILLIE. The GHILLIE helps out insanely much, especially with this new high lumen bulb perk coming out, where your lantern literally becomes a flashbang. I've met a lot of people so far who have used the high lumen bulb perk, gone ahead and blinded the slasher, flashbanged him, and then used GHILLIE inside of the bush right next to him, and the slasher had no idea. What the ghillie does is it temporarily silences your breathing for a very long period. The slasher can't hear you anymore when this gear is being used. The ghillie gear is an item that I think a lot of more people need to use because it's going to be insanely hard for the slasher to go ahead and actually find out where survivors are if there isn't that auditory hearing. The breathing helps the slasher out a lot. That's why it's in the game, to help him navigate to where survivors are. But if that's taken away, then detection's pretty much the only thing that the slasher has to go ahead and find survivors. And that's not always a guaranteed use, okay? You can only use it like 3 or 4 times in a match. If you're playing with a full lobby, I mean, there are 7 survivors. If they all use this thing, good luck. But a lot of people like to go ahead and actually use the hidden perk as well. So if you are hiding in a specific location and the slasher is about to have his detection rate up, you can go ahead and use hidden and you use ghillie at the same time. You're undetectable and your breathing is gone as well. If you are using hidden, your breathing is going to be insanely loud. It's actually the loudest breathing perk in the game. Ghillie and hidden are a good combo to use, and with this new high lumen ball perk out, I think a lot of people are going to make that a combination as well, so we got to see what's up. So this is why I'm putting the ghillie inside of the S tier. Alright guys, that was all of the gear in this tier list video. Of course, this is all opinion based, and I was just giving off my answers and sort of replies to why I was putting these specific gears in their specific tiers. There are going to be changes, okay? Definitely. There will definitely be changes of this gear tier list in the future, and I want to hear about your guys' gear tier lists in the comments down below, because there are a lot of gear that people use that I think I threw into lower categories, so I want to see how you guys rank these out. But anyways guys, that was the gear tier list in Survive the Night. That's going to do it for me guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. If you want more gear tier list videos in the future, leave a like for that as well. That's going to do it for me guys, and peace out. I'll see you in the next one.